Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and close this one out, and I'll deactivate this elevation profile line for the time being as well. And now let's move on to the next thing that I would like to discuss, and that's the option of using 3D buildings. Now for that I'm going to zoom into the city of Birmingham. And now if I happen to tilt my view, you can see that even though I'm able to look at the city at this kind of an angle, still the buildings appear to be quite flat. And that's because I have not activated this 3D buildings feature. And if I happen to activate this 3D buildings feature, you can see that immediately the buildings start to pop up. Now, the detailed accuracy of the buildings might vary from place to place, but in a city like Birmingham, you can see that they have done quite a good job in mapping the buildings in a 3D manner. And also depending on the speed of your internet connection, it might take a while for your connection to catch up all the detailed buildings. So it's quite normal if you see that the stuff are still getting loaded even after a while. But that's how it is. So you can have this kind of a helicopter view of big cities, particularly when you activate this 3D buildings feature, which is one of the biggest advantages that we have when we use Google Earth Pro. Alright, so the next thing that I'm going to teach you is how to save these Google Earth files. Now for that I'm going to again deactivate these 3D buildings just for the sake of improving my loading times. And let me go back again to this Waterloo Bridge which I digitized just a few minutes ago. And that was in London. So let's say if I happen to close Google Earth, and if I do not save these files, then I might lose it. So you might come across cases where after you specify certain things, you would like to keep a record of that. And that's exactly what I'm going to discuss right now, how to actually save these different files in Google Earth. To save these layers, all you have to do is just go over here to the corresponding layer, and after that you can right click and you can go to save places as, and I can save it here in this particular file type. It's called .kmz, and this is the file type which is being used by Google Earth to save its files. So I'm going to save the Waterloo Bridge, and I will save the Westminster Bridge as well. And I will save the St. James Park. And let's say if I happen to get rid of these three for the time being, I can just say delete in order to get rid of these layers from Google Earth. And now if I navigate back to the place where I saved those files, right over here, you can see those 3 KMZ files which we saved. And in order to open this, all you have to do is just double click. Let's say if I wanted to add the Westminster Bridge, as soon as I double click, you can see that it gets loaded along with the settings that we did previously for its icon and the label. Similarly, if I wanted to add the Waterloo Bridge, all I have to do is just double click on that, and you can see that it appears right over here. And I'm also going to add the polygon which specifies the area of the St. James Park as well, just like this, simply by double clicking over here. And you can see that it gets placed right over here at the correct location. So it's quite helpful in the sense that if you wanted to pass this information to somebody else, all you have to do is just save all these files as separate KMZs, and you can simply pass them, and they will be able to open these files as long as they have a version of Google Earth up and running. And that doesn't necessarily need to be Google Earth Pro desktop version itself. They can simply open this using a mobile device if they have Google Earth for mobile, or if they're using the online version of Google Earth, they can still open these files and view. And we can consider this to be a very efficient and an effective way to share your geospatial data with somebody else without having to use sophisticated GIS softwares. Alright, the next thing that I'm going to discuss is how to open these Google Earth KMZ files using QGIS. Now, I believe that most of our viewers already know about this QGIS software. QGIS is basically a very powerful, free and open source GIS software package. And when performing certain advanced geospatial analysis operations, it can sometimes be helpful to have the options to add these Google Earth files into QGIS. And since this is an advanced tutorial, that's exactly what I'm going to show you guys right now. And for this, you will definitely need to have QGIS installed in your computer. And I'm going to open up mine. I have the version 3.14, which is one of the recent versions of QGIS. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one of the most easiest ways of adding these KMZ files into our QGIS working space. So over here you can see that I have opened up the folder into which I have saved those 3 KMZ files. So you don't actually have to do much in order to open these KMZ files using QGIS. All you have to do is just select the files that you would like to open, simply drag it and drop it over here, and it'll get placed at the correct geographic location. But one thing that you have to keep in mind is that always make sure that you are working in WGS 1984 Geographic Coordinate Reference System, which is specified by this EPSG 4326, because that's the coordinate reference system which we were working in when we were using Google Earth Pro just a couple of minutes ago. However, you might be curious just to verify whether these different items got added to the correct location or not. Now I'm using this quick map services, and with that I get to have the option to use this OpenStreetMap as a base map. So I'm going to add that, and that'll actually help me to verify very quickly whether these locations are correct or not. And as you can see over here, if I increase the size, you can see that it got placed exactly at the correct location which I marked in Google Earth Pro. And similarly, you can see that this dot right over here, which is the Waterloo Bridge, we have the correct area of this St. James Park now being added as a polygon into my QGIS working space. Well, I can get rid of the fill color, and that'll give me a clear view of what the boundary exactly is. So for that, I'm going to go over here to the symbology. And over here under simple fill, I'm going to specify only the outline to be a simple line, and let me go ahead with red color, I guess, and increase the stroke width just a little bit as well. And from here you can see that whatever I digitized using Google Earth now has been added into my QGIS working space. And I'm going to take just one more step further, and I'm going to show you how to export these 3 different files into one of the most commonly used GIS file types, which is ESRI Shapefile. So all you have to do is simply go over here and export it, and you can save the feature as. And while saving the feature, you can select the corresponding file format to be ESRI Shapefile from here. And let me go ahead and create a new folder for that. I'm going to name that as Google Earth Files, so that we won't get confused with the other files. And this is going to be St. James Park, and I will save that, and we can simply hit OK to export that as an ESRI shapefile. And now if you navigate to the place where you saved that, which is inside this GE files folder, you can see that this set of files appear over here, which are basically the files that's required in order to form an ESRI shapefile. So finally you can see that we managed to transfer the file from being a KMZ file initially started in Google Earth, and we managed to save that into an ESRI shapefile over here. And now this file can easily be used in any GIS software, just like a regular geospatial data file, if you want to do any further analysis with that. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? Alright, so what we just discussed right now is how to convert the files from Google Earth into ESRI shapefiles, which you can use in many GIS softwares. And the next thing that I'm going to teach you is how to do the opposite of that. That means how to convert the standard GIS files like ESRI shapefiles into a file format which you can use in Google Earth Pro. And that's quite straightforward as well. So to demonstrate that to you guys, I have prepared these shapefiles, which I also used in a previous video. And that's this banks shapefile, as you can see over here. So these are just a set of banks in UK, and currently it's in the format of ESRI shapefiles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to show you how to convert this into a file format which can be used with Google Earth. So first of all, I'm going to add this shapefile into my working space, just like this. And you can see that it appeared right over here. So I'm going to get rid of these other layers for the time being, and even the base map. And I'm going to zoom to this layer so that I can see how those points actually look. So these are corresponding to different banks. If I open the attributes table, and as you can see over here, this particular column shows the name of the bank. I can make use of this identify features tool in order to have a quick look at the different points. Over here you can see that it's Lloyds Bank, and let's say this bank, you can see that it's HSBC. So just like that, you can see that these are different set of banks, and we'll have a look at the geographical location simply by activating this base map. And from this map, you can see that it's actually a set of banks which are located within and around the city of Cardiff. So now my objective is basically to transfer this information or transfer this file into a file format which can be read using Google Earth. So the process is pretty much similar. All you have to do is select export and go to save features as. And now rather than selecting ESRI shapefile, the file format that you need to select is going to be this keyhole markup language file format, KML file format. And this file format can be very easily read using Google Earth. So I'm going to specify the file name to be locations of banks, and I'm going to save that, and I can simply go ahead and export that. Alright, so now let's try to navigate to the place where we saved this information, and you can see that right over here, locations of banks, and I'll double click this and we'll see what happens. And as you can see, it flew me right into Cardiff, just like this. And the cool thing is that the different locations of the banks are now being specified using these different place marks. And if you come over here under these temporary places, if you expand, you can get a complete list of the different features, which happens to be in this case the different banks. And if you would like to make any changes to the whole bulk, you can simply select these locations of banks, KML, go to properties, and you can go to style color and click on the share style, and from here you can actually make the changes accordingly. Now I would like to change the label color to be, let's say, blue like this, and I would like to reduce the font size, and I would like to reduce the size of the icon as well. And if I click OK, now you can see that I can very clearly distinguish the banks and the other places within and around Cardiff, just like this. And if you happen to click on one of these features, just like this, you can see that everything that we saw in the attributes table is available right over here. So something to keep in mind is that everything that's included in the attributes table will get transformed, so you don't have to worry about losing any of those information. It'll still be over here, just that the way the information is displayed is a bit different. Once you just go ahead and click on the different item, you will see that those information which happen to be in that attributes table now gets displayed just like this. So pretty cool, isn't it? Alright, now I'm going to move on to the next thing that I'm going to discuss in this advanced Google Earth tutorial, and that's how to use the flight simulator. And you can activate that by going to tools, and you can select enter flight simulator. Now this lets you actually have a realistic experience of you being the pilot of one of these aircrafts. So I'm going to go with this F-16 just for the sake of this tutorial, and you can fly the plane over the current view, or you can actually get it started from a specified airport. So let's say I would like to get my plane started from this London Heathrow airport, and after that you can simply click start flight. And now what you see is that my plane is placed on the runway. And if you're using the keyboard and the mouse, you can actually start the engine simply by hitting page up. And once you're confident that it has reached the required speed to take off, you can simply hit the down button in order for the nose to rise. And it can be a bit overwhelming at the beginning to control the flight. You can simply use your up, down, left, right button in order to control your flight. And to raise the nose up, you can actually hit the down button, and to drop the nose of the plane down just like this, you can hit the up button, and now you can see that we are approaching the ground, and I'm going to very quickly raise the nose up, and you can turn the plane simply by using the arrow keys. So I'm going to turn the plane to the left side a bit, and yeah, this is something a bit tricky, and for me I find it extremely hard to retain the control of the plane. And now you can see that I managed to do a quick turn, and let me go ahead and turn the plane just a little bit more. And now you can see that I'm again reaching the ground, and before I hit the ground I'm going to again use my down arrow in order to lift the plane up just a little bit. And I hope you guys got the basic idea what we can do using this flight simulator of Google Earth Pro. So I'm not going to continue this much, just wanted to show you guys that we have the capability of actually flying around anywhere we want. We are not really limited to the areas around those airports. We can basically fly around anywhere we want just to get this realistic experience of handling a plane, of being the pilot of the plane. So I'm going to exit the flight simulator simply by clicking on this button, and that'll stop me right over here. Now we are almost reaching towards the end of the tutorial, and before I wrap up the tutorial, I'm going to go back to this Westminster Bridge again, which is a bit further away from where we were. And finally, to wrap up this tutorial, I'm just going to show you guys how to create a complete map using Google Earth Pro, which includes a proper title, some items in the legend, and a north arrow, as well as a scale bar. So all of these things can be included within Google Earth in order to produce a complete map. So when you're trying to export your map, it's actually always a good thing to hide this sidebar so that you get more coverage in your screen. And in order to save this as a map, all you have to do is go to File and select Save, and you can select Save Image. And as soon as you click that, you will see that under this map options, these different elements appear. In case if you do not want to include any of these elements, for example, if you do not want to add a legend, you can untick that. And if you do not want to add the title and the description, you can get rid of that as well. And you will see that those two items disappeared from our map view. But I'm going to keep those two. And first I'll add a title saying test map, and that's going to be my title. And I'm going to move my title to the middle part, and I will adjust this white color box, the extent of the box, just like this, and I will place this test map heading in the middle, and I'm going to make some changes to these legend items as well. So let's say over here, if I do not want to add this feature 1 and London, and let's say for some reason I also didn't want to show the St. James Park, I only wanted to highlight these two items, the Waterloo Bridge and the Westminster Bridge. So I'm going to keep those two items, and I'm going to get rid of this polygon as well, which is the St. James Park boundary. Alright, I'm going to hide this one again. And let's say if you happen to rotate your map view just like this, you can see that your north arrow is pointing towards a different direction. Usually when I'm preparing a map using Google Earth Pro, I'm going to adjust the tilt and the compass back to the original levels. And without having to do that manually, you can simply use this view, and if you go to reset, you can reset the tilt and the compass just like this, so that you can see that the north arrow is pointing upwards, which is basically how we are used to seeing regular maps. And right below that over here, you can see the scale bar as well. So if I zoom in, you can see that the scale bar gets adjusted accordingly. And I guess I'm pretty much done with this. Of course, it's not a sophisticated map, just like how you would normally do with complex GIS softwares. But I think this is good enough for presenting basic GIS data, just like this. And of course you have to keep in mind that on the lower left corner, this Google Earth watermark will be there. We don't really have a way to get rid of that because this data belongs to Google. So we have to be alright with this watermark appearing in our image. And that's alright with me. And before I export the map, I can select the resolution. So I'll go with 1920 by 1080, but of course you can specify these other high resolutions as well. But for my purpose, I'm just going to go with the 1080p HD resolution. And after you feel everything is in place, you can simply select Save Image. And I'm going to name this one as Test Map, and my file type is going to be JPEG by default. I'll save the file. And now if I navigate to the place where I saved the file into, you can see that we have this test map. And if I double click, you can see that now I have a JPEG of the things that I specified as a map using Google Earth Pro. So this brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope you guys learned something new. And these are some of the advanced capabilities that we consider to be quite important when using Google Earth Pro. So if you do have any questions or comments, you can add them down below and we'll be very eagerly waiting to respond to you guys. And if you did like the tutorial, you can definitely show your support by clicking the like button. And if you do like this kind of tutorials, you can definitely consider subscribing to our channel as well, and you'll get notified as soon as we publish a new tutorial on this channel. So thanks a lot for watching guys. I'll see you again in the next one.